Hey there guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Maverick here today with another episode of Ya Boy Kongming. So, thank you guys for the turnout in the last episode. Apparently a lot of you guys are enjoying the more historical based commentary that I provide. I can understand why many of my subscribers have been recommending this to me. I have a big interest in history, I have a big interest in music as well, so it is at the intersection of both of my interests here, right? With that being said though, I still think this is crack, right? It's good crack, but crack nonetheless. But we shall see moving forward, right? And before we get into it, I just want to quickly address 2 points from last episode. I guess sort of like errors on my part, if you will. So number one is in regards to the mirrors. So I expressed confusion as to why Kongming was making a big deal of the mirrors. It completely slipped my mind that during that time, the mirrors were not made of glass, but instead mostly made out of bronze, if I recall correctly. So, that's correct. That completely blanked my mind. So, yeah, he would be very correct in expressing amazement over this, right? So, that's one quick correction there. And the second one is another correction in regards to pronunciation of names. So, just a quick clarification here, I am from Taiwan, so I can speak Mandarin Chinese no problem. I know how these characters actually are pronounced in Chinese. It's just that I typically try to follow the English pronunciation of words when I'm dealing with an English audience, because it just sounds weird. For instance, for Kongming, like if I'm talking English and then I suddenly slip in Kongming, which is how it's pronounced in Chinese. So I don't like to do that. It sounds pretentious and interrupts the flow. So in regards to Cao Cao, I actually thought that I've always thought it was kind of weird that they sort of like spelled it as Cao. So, and I've heard before that it was actually, I forgot who it was, but other people talking about him pronounced it as cacao, so that's what I assumed that kind of spelling meant. So obviously the correct pronunciation of it is Cao Cao, which I guess according to some people, with the CAO, I guess it would be Cao Cao. It still sounds absolutely weird to me, but in any case, if that's a big thing, I will change my pronunciation as well. But with an English accent, I guess. So anyways, not that quite important, but I just want to clarify things up, and let's just jump right into the episode. Alright, let's begin in 3, 2, 1, play. Oh, actually, one more correction I had to make from hold on. Right, in the midst of his mission. That was actually the fifth offensive, the fifth invasion into the north that he launched. So the Masu story that they were talking about last episode was from his first invasion. Or first crusade, if you will. Oh, and anyways, I was talking about another correction. So I mentioned that probably like one of the furthest that he got was during the first crusade, the first offensive. I guess not necessarily. Some would argue it's the fourth or third that was more successful. Chicky. Okay. I can't really hate on this song. Even though, again, just like the anime, it's crack. Yo, about tequila. Oh my god. Ah, dang, I was vibing, I forgot to watch, to see, like, who produced this. Is this really the opening? Okay. All right. I wonder if this is like a little bit. I think it. I wonder if that's like a little sneak peek into what kind of music we're gonna be featuring here. Although so far, I feel like it's had a good mix of like EDM and like more ballad type of stuff. And here, obviously, they're listening or they're showcasing pop as well, like idol stuff, pop. Gunshi is mainly. Oh, okay. So she added asking it herself. It's mainly used in a military context. Yeah, battlefield. The gun in Gunshi means army. Oh, I felt like her first wish is gonna be increase her follower count. Summer Sonic. Yeah, I was thinking like you should first put your aim on like the local scene. Summer Sonic is a Summer Sonic's a good objective to have. Like kind of like in a lot of idol shows, they aim for the Budokan. For a soloist, Summer Sonic. Actually, for a soloist, Budokan is still a good, sort of like a good objective to have. I wonder if they're going to make comments on like the 36 stratagems. Yeah. That one is obviously more myth than actual history, but no, it is a huge part of the lore in regards to the Three Kingdoms. Okay, this one again is part more of the romance of the Three Kingdoms kind of thing. Well, that'd be a fun that would be a fun thing actually if the Combing of this world actually gets his hand on a copy of Romance of the Three Kingdoms, which is fiction, actually. All right, so this is a club, right? They have lockers and stuff. Although. Guan Yu, Zhang Fei. You know, compared to the live house scene, I'm honestly not that familiar with the club scene, especially for Japan. Like clubs here in Taiwan, it's mostly just DJs and stuff. Very rarely, I don't think I've ever seen an event where they have singers there. Oh. Oh, are we going? I would say that the songs that Echo performed last episode were just more interesting melodically. You know, that is much more of a case of preference than anything. I'm surprised that they actually, I'm surprised that they actually let him through. Hmm. Opening act. Now that's unexpected. Hmm. I have a lot of suspicions about this, but oh well. Oh, so it's not like an opening act. Well, you're certainly positive, right? Yeah, I mean, all things considered, though, it's still a chance. And chances are given to those that are prepared. Okay. 天时地利人和, right? Basically, heavens and earth and people. Okay, I've actually been to clubs like this before, though. Typically, what happens, especially if you don't have anyone in particular you prefer, like you would still be there, right? You would still be there, so it would just be a case of, typically we would still move around to see, to see what's up. Because it's rare. It's rare that you would know like every single person that's performing that night. I love that Combing is being able to use a PC now. Hmm. Let's see how he turns this around. Hmm? Okay. I'm kind of curious, like, what exactly he's planning here. I have some own thoughts myself, but Oh. They're heading over. Is she actually singing, like, I mean, in this universe, is she singing her original? Yeah, basically making the floor convoluted so they can't leave. Right. So this is actually a play on the story they mentioned earlier. Yeah. Even feng shui is utilized. All right. Yeah, you still need staying power, right? No, I'm serious though. Is this her original song? Well, at least she's consistent with her gym training, right? Right, and then once people post on this, she'll become a viral sensation, right? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, and that's it? Alright. Okay, so I'll take a look at this. And besides, like, Keep and JoJo is playing. I can't turn this off. Also, if I... It's actually the same voice that's singing for Aiko that's covering this song. So I guess you could consider it as Aiko singing, right? And actually, the male vocals is being provided by the guy playing Kongming. So yeah, in essence, you can consider this as Eiko and Kongming singing. Even though, as I said before, the voice of Eiko is actually not her voice actress, not her seiyuu, but this other lady called 96 Cat, 96 Neko. Oh, okay. So there is a little bit more after this. All the follows? I'm just gonna like. Okay, he's probably not gonna change his outfit, but if he is, he's probably gonna change it into like something crazy once again. All right, I will see you guys after this. Alright guys, that was episode 2, and in this episode we see Kongming flex a little bit of his intelligence, pull off a 5-head move, and you know, he's the Giga Chat of this anime. Even if it is, you know, it requires some suspension of disbelief, but we can't be all serious all the time, right? Now let me just get some obvious stuff out of the way. The opening, love it. It's crack, but it's definitely very catchy. You can definitely groove to it. The other songs within this episode, I'm kind of more meh towards, but I took a listen, I took a look at the very end as well with the credits and whatnot. So everything Aiko is singing here is actually original works being sang, and I'm guessing produced by, you know, the voice that's being the singing voice of Aiko. So again, like that 96 Cat, 96 Neko lady, you know, she's the one who's singing all of this, and it is her songs, I believe. So, you know, I guess in the context of this anime, they're kind of original, and that's quite an important point in especially in terms of musical anime, because the fact that she has actually an original repertoire to her, right? She's not just doing cover songs and whatnot. That's actually quite huge. I do wonder if that's going to come into play later on, whilst we get into more of the actual musical stuff, and once she grows a little bit bigger and starts to expand her horizons, right? Including like actually charging for her own shows, hosting a what in Japan they call a one-man live, which is where she is the sole artist and selling out tickets and whatnot. But that's much later, right? So we will talk about that a little bit later, as well as the circumstances to this one. First of all, I have to say there's not going to be like a mini history lesson in this episode. The reason for that being is that the actual reference they make in this episode isn't really historical based, all right? So the biggest reference in this episode is the what do we call it? The stone sentinel maze, right? I always find it funny, the English translations of these. So in Chinese it would be 八阵图, which is, you know, it's a thing, right? It's a thing, but it's much more based on fiction than historical fact. Now it does actually occur, you know, there were some mentions of it in historical text, but the actual like usage of it, and indeed in later, especially in modern day, with a lot of games and other media, they've kind of made this into this sort of very supernatural, you know, it has supernatural properties to it, right? It's like a literal maze. Once you fall into it, you can't get out, and so on and so forth. And really just how can I put this? Just putting it on a much higher pedestal than it probably should have been. Again, it's hard to say, it's hard to know, because there weren't really many historical texts that were left mentioning this. Now, by all means, it seems that this is probably some sort of formation, that Kongming used. Just what it was used for and what its effects are, those are all, you know, lost to history, right? We don't really know. So when they're talking about, like, for instance, the stone maze and you know, allowing Liu Bei to escape and all that, and indeed the sort of properties that they were borrowing from within the episode, like moving things around and stationing them at a certain place to disorient the people within it, that really comes more from the fictional work Romance of the Three Kingdoms here. Which is kind of based on history itself, right? It was heavily inspired by the actual history text, which is records of the Three Kingdoms, 三国志. But you know, at the end of the day, the Romance of Three Kingdoms is fiction. A lot of the stuff is exaggerated, and they have a tendency to put Shu, and indeed all the people within Shu, like Kongming, as the protagonist of the story, and really vilify a lot of the other other generals and people, and especially the other two, the other two countries, Wei and Wu. So, actually, one nitpick I do have to make in this episode is later on, whilst Kongming was talking to the owner, and he was like, hey, you know about the records of the Three Kingdoms, you should know what this is. So I would say that's kind of like a mistake there. He should have mentioned, like, Romance of the Three Kingdoms rather than records of the Three Kingdoms, right? And not to mention, like, why would Kongming know about that? That's a history test. That was written long after you died. So unless he already did some research on himself and the history of this world, which I guess I wouldn't really put it past him. He does have access to the internet after all. But again, like, all of the effects here and the stories that the owner was bringing up and whatnot, those were really taken more from Romance of the Three Kingdoms, the fictional text instead. So that's why I'm saying that there's not really a sort of a historical precedence in here, and not really too much stuff historically to mention. If I were to say, probably the biggest sort of historical reference here, which is again kind of obscure, but since they mentioned it anyway, would be the mentioning of Lu Xun, which is a way strategist actually. I wouldn't really. I mean, he was also a general, but this is really a cool dude. You could say that to Wu, he's the same as Kongming is to Shu, as Lu Xun is to Wu. So they were kind of like counterparts in that part. And one of the biggest claims to fame that Lu Xun has is actually playing a pivotal role in defeating Guan Yu, right? The legendary Guan Yu during their kind of little spat that they had, which was sometime, I guess, in the mid to late Three Kingdoms period. That was when Liu Bei was actually still alive. So not quite that far into history. And in fact, it was in that particular conflict, if you will, that really made me very disappointed in Guan Yu. So Guan Yu is typically always stylized as this really legendary character. In fact, even today, in a lot of like local cultures and whatnot, people worship Guan Yu. Like they worship him as sort of like this god of war, or this kind of character. But if you actually study history, you'll see that he's really much too overhyped, kind of like Lu Bu as well. In fact, you could actually say that he was a large part in the this sort of destabilization of the Shu and Wu alliance. And well, I don't want to get too much into that. It's just that, anyways, Lu Xun is a pretty cool dude, and he's actually a really smart cat as well. That's all I have to say about that. So again, no specific history lesson here, and let's move on from this maze. Now, obviously, whether that would work or not, debatable, but I do feel like the actual premise behind Kongming's strategy for this episode was quite sound, right? I mean, bring them here, and if they're here, they like what they hear, then they will stay, right? Especially if they aren't specifically like huge fans of this Mia character here, right? Again, some sort of like anecdotal stuff that I can mention. I have been to clubs like this before, although not in Taiwan, overseas instead. What typically happens, I feel, with a lot of with a lot of people is that unless you are specifically a fan of a particular act, right? Typically, you wouldn't really be fully like. You would know every single act here, right? So there are times when it would be great, it would just be natural to like move along and try to find like some places that are a little bit less crowded, and just get a general vibe of what's happening here. So I feel like even without doing anything, there would probably be people just moving around, intermingling, and whatnot. But indeed, it's definitely a good strategy to bring them here and then try to allow them to stay a little bit, hear Echo sing, and hey, if they are attracted to the sing, then maybe they will stay, right? It also, another good, I think another good method that they didn't really touch on here would be to play in a different genre, or like a different sort of style than your opposing act, so people who maybe they're not all that thrilled with the kind of music that Mia is singing or producing, right? Then they would obviously go to another place and see, okay, I want to go around, check out what the other stages are playing, and that could also be a way to attract people here, right? And without resorting to all this mysticism and whatnot, right? So actually, that was what I thought that he was going to go for, especially considering the beginning of this particular episode, where he was making a lot of comments on Mia's ability to hype the crowd and to control the tempo, control the flow, control the the general energy level of the crowd and whatnot. I thought he was going to go more in that direction, but later on when they did mention the maze between his dialogue with the owner, then I was like, okay, maybe this is what they are going to be aiming for here. But still, anyways, the overall thing itself is sound, right? And yeah, I mean, I have to agree though. This is definitely a once in a lifetime chance. You get this opportunity, you definitely go get it, right? If you are afraid of going up against these big ads, you are never going to amount to anything. So just regardless of any kind of strategy or tactics or whatnot, you gotta get out there. You gotta get out there. As long as some people, have this. Once you have this opportunity for even people or some passerbys to stay a while, listen, and maybe they like what you are doing, hey, you will get noticed, right? So they didn't really play on the sort of like social media impact stuff as well. Although I have a feeling that they're probably going to mention it maybe in the next episode or the episode after that, because we can see that Aiko is blowing up, right? And social media is obviously huge in terms of influencing these sort of underground acts. So I do have a feeling that that's probably going to come into play in the next few episodes here and whatnot. And hey, it would be nice to see Kongming think of some guerrilla tactics in order to achieve right what Aiko wants, right? I'm still waiting for them to do a more of like a grassroots, like street performance style type of stuff. I do dig that kind of thing. Obviously, this could be considered like as a sort of grassroots movement as well, but anyways, and in regards to like one of her goals here, which she mentioned, like what, Summer Sonia, I think was what they call, which is obviously a play on Summer Sonic in Japan, which is like one of the big music festivals during the summertime. Yeah, it's not really that hard to be entirely honest, because these types of festivals, these types of music events, they are divided into many different stages, sort of similar to how it was portrayed here with 3 different stages, right? And so like on the smallest stage in terms of Summer Sonic, I think I've seen many acts who got up there as long as they're at the capability of being able to sell out crowds of like maybe 1,000 people. So I mentioned the term one man solo, right? Before, which is where you are basically holding, consider like a concert, right? You are holding your own concert at a venue which either a few hundred people, maybe up to 1,000, and you're able to sell out that particular crowd, and the majority of the performance is on you. Like maybe you can have an opening act, but most people here are there and buying tickets to see you. Once you can achieve that, I feel like you have a pretty good chance of getting into Summer Sonic, to be honest. That's that, right? So what I would expect the anime to do continuing forward is go to more of these sort of events, and maybe do some street performances as well. Maybe do some stuff within bars, become like a singer in there and whatnot. And then after she gets a little bit more fame and so on and so forth, she starts her first actual one-man live, maybe first in a live house of maybe 200 people, 100 people, something of that kind of volume, and then gradually work her way up until she can maybe, I don't know, like maybe even sign a record deal or get up on, yeah, she'll need to have a label first before she can actually get up on Summer Sonic, because you still need like representatives and stuff. They don't really go out for indie artists here. Well, actually, I mean, definition of indie, right? There's definitely smaller acts, but they're still like smaller labels. They're just not the major labels. So, whereas Aiko right now is definitely just a one-person show. Although, speaking of which, I am quite curious, like how she actually writes her songs and produces her songs. We do see like she has some music production equipment in her apartment, but I do hope that we can actually touch on that aspect as well. Like, am I going into this too seriously? Like, this is obviously this is more comedy and fun oriented, especially with this premise, right? But since you are going to be making this kind of stuff, I do love delving into the specifics of like music production and how you actually grow as an artist and how you go step by step and achieve your stardom, right? So I love those kind of stories. I like to see how they move towards that particular goal, and hopefully that will happen in this anime as well. Alright, so that's it for this episode. Thank you guys. I will see you guys next time. Like I mentioned, I will be continuing to watch this throughout the week. I'll try my best to catch up. Maybe I won't be catching up to the latest episode in the next week, but I will for sure be close. So, that's that for now. Thank you guys. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.